Welcome back to the Business Roundtable podcast. I'm David Carr, founder of Steward Your Business and host of the Business Roundtable podcast. We have a brand new guest I'm super excited to have on, Pranav Dalal. He is the founder and CEO of Office Beacon. We're going to get into all of that, unpack it a little bit, but I'm excited because for you, the small business owner, the leader, and you're struggling with perhaps scaling, how do we do this in a sustainable way? Pranav has been there and really has been able to create the space, the infrastructure to scale. And I'm excited for you to listen in. I met Pranav last year at the Executive Next Practice Forum here in Southern California, where he's going to speak again next month here. We're recording this at the end of January 2026. Pranav, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
I appreciate it, David. Glad to be here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have so much experience, and I really appreciated what you shared last year when I heard you speak, and I'm glad to have you coming back and speaking again in person and live. So those of you that haven't signed up, go check it out because it'll be there in person here in Irvine. But you have, you've created Office Beacon now, and you've been doing this for over, 25 years, Pranav?
Yeah,
it's like,
we're in our 25th year anniversary. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
And so you were kind of in it before remote work was even mainstream, right? I mean, that's amazing.
I think we were definitely a pioneer of it. And it's nothing like today, but it was definitely a lot of struggle and a lot of interesting stories from those days 25 years ago.
Well, I want to maybe start there for the audience that doesn't know your background or hasn't heard you. But what I heard you say when you were speaking before was that you were solving a capacity problem, not just a trend. And can you break us down of like the impetus of Office Beacon and how you decided to even get into this space?
Yeah, well, 25 years ago, prior to that, I was in the internet space working for internet startups here in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And, in 2000, there was an internet bubble, which was basically the stocks, all of them crashed, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that industry was dead for a few years. There's no venture capital, nothing flowing into it. And so I remember sitting down thinking to myself, what's my next move, right? And essentially, was it going to be software or service? And I decided that, first of all, service, because I can control that, and it wasn't the right time for software. Mm-hmm. So having thought that through, then I started reading. I came across a white paper about outsourcing in India, and I immediately said, okay, makes sense. I mean, my mind works to think about competitive advantage, and that was a very clear one. That was pretty brand new. So headed to India, bought a plane ticket, headed to India. On that trip, I was there for a week. I rented an office and hired 5 people and didn't know what I was going to do, but came back to LA and started cold calling and found that I was pretty good at cold calling. And you just kind of fake it till you make it. We were just getting the work, getting a lot of clients early on for sure. And that trend didn't stop. And just figured out like how to make this work at that time. So it's quite a journey.
Wow, it's interesting you say that, Pranav, because I did a podcast recording with a woman that does websites, and it was interesting what you just said, because coming from the website stuff, she was like saying, look, she was really telling if like you're coming to me and you're an entrepreneur just starting out and you don't have those sales, like you said, Pranav, don't waste your time getting the website and doing all this stuff. Just go proof of concept, get out there. Right. I love that. What would you say as that you learned early on about leadership that you feel like still holds today in leading yourself, leading your teams?
Yeah, there was a couple of really valuable steps and things that I learned and really decided upon. One was don't undervalue yourself. So we would early on have clients who would really try to have us discount rates and pit us against competitors. And I really valued the quality we brought. I understood the value proposition. So as long as you understand that, you're not going to undervalue yourself, and because if you do that, you're really undermining your business. So that was the first thing. that I made sure of. But I also didn't want to price ourselves out of the market. So,
Yeah.
if you price it too high, eventually, your customers are going to look for alternatives. So you have to find that balance. The other lesson I think that I learned early on, because I was selling during the day, I was quality control during the evenings, I was doing training, I was doing everything, right? Like I didn't have a huge staff and payroll to be able to pay people to do all this. But at a certain point, I said, if I keep doing this, I'm going to have a heart attack.
Yes.
And so I had to let go as an entrepreneur. I had to get people that I could trust, and we put in process to be able to handle the work. And so I think that's a thing that entrepreneurs go through. I mean, they just got to control everything, and it's very hard to let go. So very early on, I did that, and I think just and the hardest part is a lot of these people are out of sight, out of mind in a different country, and
Yes.
you have to put in the process to make sure that you can have that quality control without being on it 24/7.
Yeah. Well, you hit a lot of different elements there. So what I heard you say, Pranav, is that you realize that you are a bit of a bottleneck, and I think all leaders at some point, I mean, as being a leader, recognizes where am I a bottleneck and how do I get out of the way. So, and then you're creating this infrastructure. Was it you? I'm curious, is it because some people I find are really good at developing systems and processes and documenting it, and other people are more visionary and they can and then they bring other people in to help them. What did that look like for you, Pranav?
Yeah, I can do both, but my natural state is the visionary and being able to provide that vision. But that vision is, really describing in detail what that means, right? So that the people that you work with, who are really the execution people, operational, we also call them integrators. Those people can really take that vision, that you've outlined in great detail, and then they can really do it with the right intention, the right direction. But you got to have those right people. And in my 25 years, we've hired countless tens of thousands of people, and because we're constantly growing, it's just always like finding the next leader. So it's a continuous process for us,
Right.
and it's not easy. It's not a static business that's just sort of like stuck at this size. So I think for me, it was really like, I'm definitely the visionary, and I try to stick to that lane as much as I can.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Pranav. One of the tools I use in my company is called Five Voices. Like, how do you understand how you show up? And what I would say, you're a pioneer voice in that you're that visionary, somebody that's casting the vision, going forward, and then you have other people come behind you. And to your point, I see where if you don't understand this about yourself, you might undermine your influence and effectiveness, right? If you were trying to be in the minutia of the day-to-day, you would not grow Office to be into where it is today.
Definitely. I wholeheartedly have that mindset, right? And I think, again, I spent a lot of time evaluating talents, looking at people, and understanding where they're going to be best be able to impact the business and our clients.
So when you're finding, so I would imagine, as folks are listening to this and they're at a different scale, where do you feel, or what does Office Beacon really come in as like, where their leaders becoming, like you said, a bottleneck, and saying like, is there a certain number of staff, or there's a certain number of revenue, or it's like, hey, look, you should be paying attention to these things because this could really help unlock you, if you will, if you get some outside help.
Well, I've set up the company in a way that we can help by even providing a part-time staff. And a great place for an entrepreneur to start is looking at their own tasks. Hire a remote VA, which is very cost effective. I can tell you, I can share the story of my own VA. She's terrific. She frees up so much time. I used to get hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. At this point, she is looking at every email before I look at it and actioning it, putting it in folders for follow-up or whatever it may be. Like the amount of hours I've now saved in a day is incredible. So doing little things like that as an entrepreneur and looking at remote staff to just take away a lot of that admin time, and then also handle tasks, which makes sense to do, remotely, so that you can invest those savings and resources in the most important areas of growth for your company. And that's how I look at it strategically. I've done it for my own company, the way we've invested and used this talent, and I would highly encourage entrepreneurs to do the same thing.
So I there's a couple of methodology I like, Pranav, that I use. A book called Getting Things Done by David Allen, and I'm also certified with Full Focus Planner. But to get to that point where you said how, like, to go through your list of all, like you said, emails, all these things, like slowing down a little bit before you go faster. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's critical. You referenced some books. One that I can think of is Buy Back Your Time, right? Like it's got a great lot of great nuggets in there, including this email story. And I think that slowing down for the visionary or entrepreneur of the organization is critical. So we're so caught up with our cell phones, looking at email, looking at social media, like all of these things are consuming our brain cycles, our creativity. And I try to take those things away, right? And really focus and think clearly about the future, about what we need to do. And when you take that time away, incredible things can happen. You can just come back with the mindset of hey, this is what we need to do. Like your mind just frees up. And entrepreneurs, I think, in great mass, don't realize like how many cycles they're losing just being on the rat race of making sure they're on email and text and everything else. Like it's taking away from your growth.
That's so insightful, Pranav. And to your point, you were talking earlier about if you're not developing other people, developing other leaders, it just, like I said, it's just going to come back up to you. So it's like you have to develop those things, and it's like ongoing because it never ends. In a good way, meaning if you're growing and scaling, you're continuing to develop below you, right? And that's
absolutely.
Instead, and I think there's a fixed mindset maybe, or a growth mindset, and maybe you could speak to this too, because sometimes we get stuck, or we think we get to a certain level. I find that with some business owners where they get, I don't want to say comfortable, but they've got some success, and now they're playing not to lose instead of playing to win, and so they kind of hunker down a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Well, I think a great example is my company. We're in the people business, the staffing business. AI was released to the world, unleashed a few years ago. And I would say probably a lot of people in my business would be fearful of that, right? Because it's replacing your core business. But I actually did the opposite, so I didn't hunker down. I didn't just say, this is like my kingdom and that's it. I'm all in, right? Like you have to look at things that could disrupt you and be the disruptor yourself. Like do those things to yourself and figure out how you can become more competitive. And that's exactly what we're doing. This past year, I have really dedicated myself day and night to AI. I've gone to courses. I've done my own programming. I now have built a formidable team in AI, and we're starting to release products. So I feel very confident. Like I'm not stressed about it. I'm not worried about it. I know exactly how it's going to help us, our clients, and that's what I think entrepreneurs need to look at is, okay, look at the playing field, look what's out there, and then pick and choose where you need to spend that time focusing on what's going to help you in the future.
Well, I like how you broke that down, and that was something that stood out to me too when you were speaking last year. Was that you've been able to use AI, you've able to how we manage these different teams. You mentioned remote, in person. I feel so it doesn't sound to me like, Pranav, you're like not intimidated by it. You're just like, here's the playing field. So how do I play the game based on all the pieces out there?
Yeah, and I am incredibly excited about it because this is like the Wild West. So AI is, I think about the 2000s when I was in the first wave of internet companies. Internet was fairly new. This is the second big wave that's probably 100 times bigger, and I'm incredibly excited because I feel like it's like a gold rush. Like in terms of the possibilities are endless, right? Like of what my company could do, where we could morph into, like what impact we can make, and I'm all in on that. And so It may not be the same thing for every company, but I think when you find those competitive advantages and figure that out, you got to really run with that, and and maximize those strengths, because that's what's going to make a difference, make your company a differentiator out there.
Yeah, well, if anything, to your point, Pranav, I'm 52. I remember the .com era and the .com boom, and I remember people saying, why do we need a website? What's
Right.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And if you're not, to your point, if you're like, hey, AI is here, I got to figure out how I leverage it, how do I incorporate that in with what's going on. To me, I think it's an interesting time. Like you said, we're on the threshold of what are we exchanging value for? So historically, we're looking, I've looked at, we trade time for money, and that's not going to go away immediately. But I do see something that's interesting in the market. I'm interested to see you, Pranav, see this as like we provide value and outcome based on what we're doing. And what does that look like? Because I feel like at least, in the United States, we've kind of always gone on this model, especially when you're talking about lower level staff. But I think people are challenging it; they're pushing it back. Like, what does it look like? Do I have to do 40 hours work? Could I do 20 hours? Or what does that look like, especially with remote work and getting the desired outcome? Can you speak a little bit to that? What you're seeing? Because I feel like we're on a precipice of a threshold, if you will, of kind of reinvigorating in a good way. I think of, hey, if you're doing good work, this is exchanging that value, that outcome.
Wow, that's a great question.
A lot about in there, but I'm just curious because you brought up AI, and I think that, you said, what we're seeing in the market of like, how do we help people if we get them that desired outcome, right? We come in and we help them.
Yeah.
What does that look like instead of just changing time for money?
Yeah. I think what I'm seeing is a lot of companies trying to figure out AI and how it's going to work for them. I don't think it is moving. It is moving fast, but not generally throughout business. It's not. I'm not seeing an impact to us. For example, I'm seeing significant growth, and with us being leaders, even understanding AI and how to deploy it, it's only going to help. So I think quite frankly, I think business owners should be just moving forward, not being frozen in paralysis and analysis by paralysis, right? Like they can't be frozen. I mean, you've got to take the steps. And I've got a great example. I thought about like our sales strategy, right? And I started a new, not a new, but back in 2017, a new way of selling and a new way of growing our lead generation engine.
Yeah.
And it was a commitment. And I invested in it every single month. And today, like we generate over 100,000 visitors to our website a month. We get, we can predict the number of prospects we're going to get and the sales we get monthly. And that was because I really was focused on making sure that was a long-term commitment that I made. And the same is true for AI. If you're not sure what to do, just get started somewhere, right? Like get started on a problem, and that's going to lead you to so many avenues of discovery and understanding, and it's going to progress your business. Like it's going to help you, but not doing anything, or just not sure of what to do, or being afraid to spend some money on an investment. Like I think you've got to have the mindset to say this is the future, and I'm committed to it, no matter where it takes me.
I love that, Pranav. So because where I found some help in that area, to your point of like looking at that, is getting into some kind of, don't be isolated by yourself, because if it's just you, can you talk a little bit about like the people you surround yourself with, or the space to hopefully rise up?
Yeah. Well, 10 years ago, I can tell you, like my journey, I did my MBA like over 20 years ago, but 10 years ago, I enrolled at Harvard Business School. I did a 3-year program there called the Owner's President Management Program. It's an incredible program that really opened my eyes to transformation. Surrounded myself with a great cohort of individuals and successful business owners around the world that I speak with on a regular basis. Then I joined some other groups, one in particular, Vistage, which is a peer-to-peer networking
Yeah.
and entrepreneur group. So I meet, once a month with my group, and then I became a speaker and also a national sponsor. And so I definitely think it's important for CEOs to have their ear to the ground and as close actually to business leaders and customers, because that's where you're going to get information and golden nuggets about like what's happening on the street out there in the markets and industries. And it, all too often a CEO could be sort of disconnected from all that, as you said, like just in their own bubble. And that's, I think, the wrong thing to do, because you're not going to really understand what's happening and not get feedback and information right at the grassroots level, right? So I try to do that as much as I can.
That's fantastic, because I want and getting that outside perspective and then saying, hey, I'm considering this investment. Because here's the thing, I find a lot of folks, business owners, SMBs are not struggling with it, but they're faced with people selling them something, but is it something that they can talk with somebody else about, and then you say, is this a good fit for what I need or where I'm at, right? Objectively, right? Because they're like, hey, I'm not in your business, I'm just looking at this, and having a sounding board.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of great forums, business forums that I'm part of, and getting feedback. And quite frankly, AI too, like, is helping you, helping people make preliminary, decisions, or not decisions, but getting a mindset of understanding what to consider. And so, I've never used AI to make a decision, but it's giving you like full facts of things that you may not have thought of, and that you can discuss with others. So I think that's definitely very critical. We also work with consultants and leaders, and have a de facto board that helps us like with major decisions. So I think all of those things are great, valuable data points. But ultimately, I've got to make the big decisions and understand like I've got all the information. I feel comfortable when I am making those decisions.
Yeah, I would love for the audience to hear maybe an example or two of a company that came to you, Pranav, and that they were like, okay, we have this issue, we don't have the capacity there, we need to build that infrastructure, and maybe a couple different sizes or examples, Pranav, because of like, so I want the audience to listen and say like, am I in this situation? And if I was gonna, like you said, rather than sitting back and just worrying or waiting, and like say about, they made the move, they made the investment, even maybe they weren't quote ready, but they decided, okay, we're going to put our hands in Office Beacon, we're going to trust them, they're going to look after us, and we're going to be successful. Have you maybe given an example or two of some clients you've worked with, Pranav?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, several years ago, I met an executive from a subsidiary of Vistaprint, and Vistaprint, huge, multi-billion-dollar online printer of products and all that. And so their goal was to sell a personalized pen, which had logos on it, etc., to every business in the United States, right? Like 30, SBA's count, I think, is like 32 million businesses or something like that. So that was their goal, and that's actually the vision of Vistaprint, right? To be able to touch every business. But how would you do that effectively? So we were brainstorming, and we met in their offices in San Diego. I went down there, and this is one of my superpowers, is really coming up with competitive advantage. And so the advantage was we would come up with this pen, which they had a great way of doing a full 360-degree personalized wrap on it, like a car wrap or bus wrap. They could do this on a pen, and they could do it like personalized for every business. So we set up a team overseas that could design each individual pen for each business. We did it in high scale, very high scale. The initial sort of testing didn't go so well, because we had to really learn, and this was all done in India at the time, how to do that effectively and make those designs very powerful. After honestly, about 3 to 6 months, we perfected it, and then the ROI on that program was just substantial, and the program went for years. So that's an example, like of a business problem, and how to use a company like mine to overcome it and solve it. Now, obviously today with AI, some of this is possible too, but I think to really scale and test these programs, you really need human intervention to just see how it can be working effectively before investing in all of the programming and everything else that's
right.
Yeah.
Well, I love how you led by example, that you went down to the office, you listened to their problem, you you were like, okay, what's going on there? And I feel like you're investing in the relationship enough. And this is part of the thing that blew me away as far as one of your sales strategies was, and it continues to be, to inviting individuals to come to a sporting event or an experience. And I remember the first time, I saw that from Office Beacon. I'm like, is this real? Is this real? Are
Yeah,
they actually doing
yeah,
this? You know? And
yeah,
and
yeah,
I saw the investment that you're making in the relationships and creating an environment and experience for folks to come in and see, is this a good fit, and say, look, I'm going all in on the front end, because that's the way you approach business, that you approach those relationships. And not all businesses do that. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because they're all more about trying to extract as much as they can rather than coming from a place of value. And that's why honestly the Business Roundtable came about. The podcast was like, create value. Let's put something out there that somebody can experience, taste, and see. And it seems like it's been wildly successful for now. As that venture, because I never heard anybody else doing that.
yeah, yeah. We do that all across the country. And I'm a firm believer that if you can meet people in person, you're really gonna build very quickly a rapport. And
Mhm.
once someone trusts you, then it's very easy to do business together. So I'm all in on that, actually. Like in this day
Yeah.
and age of digital and web conferences and all that,
Yep.
and Zoom, which is fine. I just don't feel like you can build as quickly the rapport you need to build those relationships. So yeah, so I definitely invested pretty heavily in all of that, but it's definitely paid off for us.
Yeah, I was amazing. I loved hearing the story. And again, you guys definitely want to connect with Pranav on LinkedIn and follow Office Beacon there. I mean, you're going to come back and speak in person. So if you're in Southern California, come out to the Executive Practice Forum. They meet twice a year typically, but and I know your team was there last year, which was great to meet them as well. And I saw, what was the other thing? I think not just Pranav, you, but I thought this, like, your team had quite an enthusiasm and energy. So it definitely, can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to do that as a leader, infusing the culture and how the ethos of who we are beyond just yourself, especially at
Yeah.
the scale you're at? I mean, this is hard to do at scale.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think
Yeah.
I try to lead by example. First of all, I think I'm very energized and excited about what
Mhm.
we do today. We're not a stagnant company. I mean, every single day is something new, and we're always coming out with new things. And
Mhm.
I think the employees are treated more like let's call it like entrepreneurs themselves. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like we micromanage and we expect results, but and I do,
Mhm.
but everyone has a lot of authority and autonomy to be able to get their job done. So I think we've done a lot to build corporate culture, and
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of transparency, openness. So I think employees and coworkers really appreciate that. I hold town halls with thousands of employees, every quarter. So that transparency also transcends down to different levels and different departments. And we're doing exciting things. And next month when I'm speaking at the conference, I think I'll be like sharing some really exciting things that the whole group will, I think, be part of. And I'm
Awesome.
really excited about that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you're saying. It doesn't happen by accident. It's very intentional, and it's not a set it and forget it kind of a thing. Like you said, it's ongoing. It's regular. And it takes energy and effort. And I think the business owners are listening in. If you're not doing that, then you're not going to have that greater success that you're seeing at, like Office Beacon has had. How many employees and individuals do you have now working with you?
Yeah, full time over 5,500.
Wow.
So yeah, over 25 years. It's been and I'm very proud of the fact that I've kept it private. I own it, and I haven't been interested in getting outside investors at all. It's a family
Mhm.
business. My two older
Mhm.
kids are now working in the company, and it's a real passion for all of us.
That's so rare nowadays, Pranav. I mean, I had a conversation earlier on a podcast last year on ESOPs, is employee stock owned, companies, but it's hard to create a legacy and maintain it. I worked for a company here in Southern California called Ganal Lumber that's been around here for over 100 years,
Yeah,
but it's very
right.
hard to keep that going. Most companies, you're in that place of the fact that you've got your family involved, being able to, stave off private equity and coming in like that, because that changes culture. So to me, it sounds like how you've been able to maintain the culture and build within. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's been a real mission for all of us. I think employees understand like the sacrifice all of us make, all of our families, like we're working a lot and in different parts of the world. And the appreciation is there for sure in terms of just appreciating all the sacrifices everyone's made over the years.
That to me, Pranav, is all. If you created a company and environment where people feel they're all in it together versus transactional, we hear the us versus them. It's the executives and it's us. But I hear that you've been so intentional about creating this, and I hope as business owners they're listening about you can do that with full-time employees. You can develop with remote employees. You can do it if you do it intentionally. And you've been able to do it for 25 years now. Kudos to you on that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. I know we're getting to the end of the podcast. I would love to go longer, but we're just maybe able to pick up another time. But as we've covered a lot of ground, Pranav, in the business owner, the leader, the person that's responsible for their group, and they need to grow and they need to develop their teams. And what would you encourage them to do today as they kind of stop listening, they hang up the podcast, and they can do actionably in improving their company for the better from what we've talked about today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be selfish and say like pick up the phone or email us or come to our website, because I think getting started is just the first step. There's a lot of remote staffing companies out there now. But we are more than that. We're not just putting a person in a seat for you. We're really a partner for growth. So you're getting more than that. You're getting sort of a system. You're getting consulting for free. You're getting a know-how of 25 years in different industries. So I would just start today, and just at least get the conversation going and figure out like how we can help you or a company like mine, and see where you can get those, leverage the savings as well as the growth, ideas that we can bring to you.
Well, I'm grateful you're here, Pranav, because that's why we wanted to have our listeners hear somebody else that's coming from a place of abundance, coming from a place of success and care for their own employees, and you live from what you're leading yourself from what you live, and that's so powerful, Pranav. And I really appreciate you coming and sharing with our audience today.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. We're going to make sure that we have your contact information in the office. You can note all in our notes there. We hope you guys will come back, list any comments, give us your feedback. We would happily share that with Pranav. And we look forward to you coming back on our next episode of the Business Roundtable podcast. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Take care. Thanks, Pranav.